Now, for more on the growth of combat sports, I'm joined by Mark Gray, HSRN host and writer for ShadowLeague.com. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Now, Mark, help us understand the size of the industry. Which combat sports are the real money makers?
Well, the UFC has cornered the market on its mixed martial arts fighting, hand-to-hand combat type of format, which seems to play to the millennials. You know, where you have a boxing, which is an older type of sport that has trouble making the fights that the audience wants to see. UFC and mixed martial arts give the audience what they want. And it's a really intense, physical, passionate type of sport. The live experience is something different than a boxing match is. So it plays to a newer generation. That's why the popularity is still growing.
That's interesting, that shift in demographics. Now, what about this rumored price tag for the UFC, looking at $4 billion? How realistic would that be?
I think I heard something in the neighborhood of $7 billion when you get right down to it. It's real because you bid for something and you purchase it now with the notion that there's still an upside. And from a corporate perspective, there still is an upside with the UFC and mixed martial arts. I mean, you consider the Asian market is just something that they're beginning to tap into. Last year, they reached out into the Philippines. They had several shows that are planned for this year in that part of the world. London is a booming MMA hotbed, if you will, got some champions from that environment. And then you also have dueling leagues. So you put everything together, you got a little bit of controversy, a lot of excitement, and it plays to the millennial generation. I think you got the recipe for what we're seeing going on right now.
And speaking of that recipe, as you mentioned, going into Asia, we saw that at least 2 Chinese firms were rumored to be interested in the deal. So when it comes to the next big growth driver, is China the place to be?
It is for every sport. You saw that with the NBA. You see now with the mixed martial arts, soccer is a big thing. China has so many eyeballs, which represents a tremendous marketing opportunity to the West. The more vehicles through sports that you can create to take advantage of getting into that marketplace. And this is just the latest. And I think that it just speaks to what the West is now realizing about exporting sports the way that they've exported products for many, many years.
And as they look to export more MMA, do you think, is it too soon to perhaps put a price tag on how big it could get in the Asian market?
I don't think it is. I think that, well, I do think it is too early to put a price tag on it, I should say, because if you use the United States and the way it has taken over the combat sports marketplace, if you use that as an example, you have to say that the same thing could happen in Asia. And if it happens in Asia, the exponential growth of this thing financially and popularity-wise could perhaps have it in a position to challenge soccer as the world's most popular sport.
Now, when it comes to some of these countries that are really pushing for this, as you mentioned, you have soccer, you have these very high-profile sports, and getting these combat sports to that same level in all these other countries, what do you think it's going to take?
You know, I was thinking about that as we were getting ready. I can see mixed martial arts replacing boxing in the Olympics, because the popularity of boxing is waning as an international competition. There's so much controversy that goes with it. Here you have MMA. If you can find a way to get it sanctioned by the International Olympic Committee, those are the type of upside elements that we talk about with the growth of this sport. As big as it is right now, you could make a compelling argument that from a marketing standpoint, it's still in its infancy. Can you imagine what it's going to be like when it really grows up or matures, so to speak?
And just quickly, as we're talking about some of these ways of making money, you're seeing, obviously, boxers like Floyd Mayweather making millions and millions of dollars. Do you foresee a point where these combat athletes would get to that same point?
That's a very interesting point, because the pay scale hasn't reached what it is in prize fighting yet. And I don't know if there will be that one compelling personality that will be allowed to grow almost above the sport like Floyd Mayweather was. It's a different date and time where the corporate establishment wants you to grow within the context of their brands, but will they let you exceed it? It'll be interesting to watch that play out.
Interesting indeed. Thank you so much for joining us, Mark Gray from ShadowLeague.com and host of HSRN.
If you like what you just saw, follow us on social media and visit our website, cctv-america.com.